Welcome to the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast of thevikingage.com. My name is Chris Schad. I write for the Viking Age as well as Zone Coverage, Bring Me the News, and the Brookings Register. My co-host is Adam Patrick, who is the managing editor of the Viking Age. And we do this every Monday and Thursday right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. But if you miss us, we're available in podcast form on Apple, Spotify the very next day. However you consume us, though, rate, comment, like, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. Adam, to start off with, I just want to kind of note something here. I am wearing a green shirt on a Vikings podcast, but it is not a Packers shirt. I think people can tell because it's a little brighter green or whatever.
Kelly green.
Yeah, it's like the Kelly green. Same green that the North Stars rock. Sometimes I'll rock my Madonna shirt for Mike Madonna, but the Wild are apparently interested in just stockpiling bottom six forwards. So that's a lot of fun. Very similar to the Vikings, honestly. But yeah,
I was just thinking in my head, like the MLB and NHL draft are like, you like really have to be into those to like pay attention to those because they're not like the NFL draft or the NBA draft. Because I've seen a bunch of tweets about like the NHL draft, and I'm like, I don't even know what's happening.
And it's very similar in that it usually takes a year or two. Like Marco Rossi was selected by the Wild 9th overall a couple years ago, and he can't crack the lineup because Freddie Gaudreau is a bottom six hockey god that nobody else can kill a penalty. Nobody else can shorthanded. Marcus Foligno, no, let's Ring of Honor, even though he skates around like a moron in the playoffs. No, I am actually wearing the shirt of a defunct franchise. And I actually booked a vacation in that city. The old Seattle Supersonics, the old classic here. So I'm pretty excited to go out there because never been there. Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, grunge, big Nirvana guy.
Coffee.
Yeah. Ken Griffey Jr.
Yep.
Probably see a couple mentions of him. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go see the Twins strike out over 20 times in Seattle. It just hits different in a different city. It's like, well, at least the stadium's cool. I'll go check that out. But
is it still Safeco Field or something else?
It is T-Mobile Park. But Safeco was an insurance company.
Hey,
so I mean, it wasn't like, it is funny. Like Cincinnati's ballpark is called the Great American Ballpark. And if you don't know, you're like, wow, that's a really cool name. Like really unique. No, Great American's an insurance company.
Right.
So that's a thing.
Like the Staples Center.
Right.
Like, oh.
And like sometimes too, like, so you mentioned the Staples Center. Sometimes too, that name sticks and then it's just known. Like Miller Park in Milwaukee is now American Family Stadium.
Coors Field.
Yes. Coors never, ever changed Coors Field. Like I will be upset. I'm not even a Rockies fan.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, don't take the beer naming. I know you're losing money to like seltzer bros who are just like doubting them. Love a good seltzer from time to time, but probably have a couple over the weekend because America, right? Our founding fathers would pound a couple of White Claws. Anyway, speaking of bros, let's talk about Dalvin Cook. Let's talk about this saga because apparently the Vikings have moved on from the best running back in the NFL. You got your Saquon Barkleys. You got your Josh Jacobs, your Jonathan Taylors. Nah, Dalvin Cook. And apparently the Vikings were stupid for letting him go. We spent a lot of time on Dalvin Cook in this podcast, but his free agency has been very interesting. He wants a big deal. Okay, cool. Tom Pelissero, who's very plugged in with the Vikings, I'm going to make that clear. He says that Cook has received multiple offers. Can believe that as well. And then, of course, here in Minnesota, we're pretending that Alexander Mattison is a superstar running back with 3 down capabilities and everything else. We'll see if that happens. But this is about Dalvin Cook right now because it is getting weirder by the day how much the national media is hyping up Dalvin Cook. Tom Pelissero on the Rich Eisen show just before he was released. I have a quote here. He says, the challenging part of this with Dalvin Cook is you're talking about a 4-time Pro Bowl pick. He is the only player in the NFL that has had at least 1,100 rushing yards in each of the past 4 seasons. He is 27 years old, and he might be the healthiest that he's ever been because the shoulder that's been popping in and out for 3 years got surgically repaired. And based upon everything I've heard, he's completely on track to his recovery. And by the start of training camp, so I think he said should be ready by the start of training camp and the regular season. Again, Tom Pelissero is very plugged into the Vikings.
Yeah, he's from Minnesota.
He's from Minnesota. I believe he goes to games on occasion. Actually, they send him on assignment. But I mean, he's based in Minnesota. He hears things.
The big games.
I think he worked for 1500 ESPN before he went to NFL Network.
And I want to say he either worked for paper. I think he might have worked for
Pioneer Press, maybe.
He worked for one of those, the Tribune or the Pioneer Press, but he covered the Packers.
Okay.
So
he knows people. This is the thing here. That being said, this sounds like an email from an agent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. That's fine. I mean, you got to scratch the back of your sources. You got to do all that stuff. I'm not and he didn't say anything wrong there. Where this is getting really weird is when you have other people talking. People such as Pat McAfee. And I gotta go and kind of find it here because I thought I had everything pulled up, but I didn't. I guess, what are you thinking about this while I look up Mr. McAfee's comments?
Well, with Pelissero stuff, I just think it's always interesting when people point out the Pro Bowls. Still, like, he's a 4-time Pro Bowler. And it's like, they just changed the format of the Pro Bowl because no one cares about it. Like, they took away the game. Anthony Wright, is that who made the Pro Bowl last year? Who's the quarterback, the backup for the Ravens? Is that right? Am I right?
Huntley.
Is that right?
Tyler Huntley.
Why did I think Anthony Wright was like their old backup? Yeah. Tyler Huntley made the
Pro Bowl. That was way back there. That's a good poll, by the way.
Did he throw like 4 touchdowns last year or something like that? And
Let's see. Yeah, he was a backup for the Ravens.
Tyler
Huntley threw 2 touchdowns and 658
and he made the Pro Bowl. So it's just lose me. And I don't even think Dalvin was like a first. He wasn't on the opening Pro Bowl roster or whatever. So he was an alternate. And that never gets mentioned. So the people making the Pro Bowl roster didn't even think Dalvin Cook was one of the best running backs in the NFC. And then you look at like over 1,000 yards as a running back, which is an accomplishment more today than it was, say, 1998, 99, when you had like half the league's running backs were 1,000-yard rushers. But you have to, these days we have tools and, other analytics ways of looking at how a player performs. And when you look at closer, not just the broad spectrum of, he rushed for 1,100 yards. No, look at like the majority of his carries and how inefficient they were. And he played a lot like Adrian Peterson last year, where like there was a lot of
late career Adrian Peterson.
Yes, a lot of famine, feast. And then you're like, he's a great running, like that 80-yard run against the Bills. I don't think he was playing well that game. I know he wasn't playing well against the Dolphins, and he busted off that long run, and that made his yards look a lot better. So it's some broad terms are being used to sell Dalvin Cook, which I don't really think you need to. His play speaks for itself. If you think he's good, he's still got plenty left in the tank. If you think he's good, then sign him. Is this more of a push to maybe like get him more money? Because I don't think that's going to happen. He got released in June. Like, no team is going to be like, let's give this guy $10 million to, like, no, it's not going to happen. And I think Pelissero did point out, I don't know if this was in this appearance or an appearance the other day, where like Dalvin Cook might wait until middle of training camp to sign. And then he pointed out, like, if he waits too long, then a team could decide to sign someone who's cheaper, and then Dalvin Cook will be forced to sign for a lower amount than you might have gotten in the first place. So, like, don't wait too long, Dalvin, because you might not get what you're looking for. And I think it might get to a point where Dalvin's just like, I just want to play. So, like, whatever. And then maybe next offseason he can be a free agent and get some decent money. So,
I'll preface this by saying I hate reading quotes on the air because it just sounds boring, but we don't have rights to anything. So I apologize for our YouTube audience that's probably watching this. But I did find the McAfee quote that I had transcribed, and he said this, Dalvin Cook can absolutely still fucking go, by the way, the fact that he's available, right? And I'm skipping a little bit here. It's like Dalvin Cook was off there diving. The reason why I think Justin Jefferson has had all the success he had is because Dalvin Cook was in the backfield. Now,
come on, Pat.
To a degree, okay,
come on, Pat.
Let me preface this. I love Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
I really do. I watch his show. I don't want to come across as like a fan, but he was great on wrestling color commentary. I miss him dearly on SmackDown, which is no offense to Wade Barrett, just the enthusiasm and just kind of that kind of.
There's a reason why he's getting awesome. $11 million a year from ESPN.
Exactly. So I'm not saying, please don't block me on Twitter or any of that stuff, but I also. He's right to a degree, because if Dalvin Cook wasn't in the backfield getting all those negative and 0-yard runs, the Vikings wouldn't have had to thrown much in the fourth quarter, which would have brought Justin Jefferson's numbers down. So to agree, he's right. But to say that Justin Jefferson's success was completely predicated off of Dalvin Cook. Are you watching the Vikings? You're not, and that's fine. Yeah. That's totally fine. But AQ Shipley, another guy, he had him on his guest as he was
former offensive lineman.
Yeah, as he was talking about Dalvin. And AQ said, I'm watching these highlights right now. It's like you watch this and it's not like it looks like he's in year 13 and lost a step. Like he is fucking cruising, still like cruising. And when you look at this stuff and you start to weigh these options as GMs or front office people or scouts or whatever, and let's be honest, they all overanalyze everything and they think the grass was always greener until it isn't, right? And then you sit here and you watch this stuff and it's like, how is this guy still available? And not to mention, even if he does lose a step, these guys are such elite football players of the generation that they lose a step. What they've lost in a step, they've gained in experience and become better football players by even losing a step. And that's what these people can't ever put a number on. Tell me you haven't watched the Vikings without actually telling me you haven't watched the Vikings, because yes, the highlights that Dalvin Cook puts out.
I was going to say the key word in that whole quote was highlights.
Yes. And key, like you said, it's famine, feast. That was the problem, because it put the Vikings behind the sticks. Mm-hmm. They had to throw more on 2nd and 10. They were actually on 2nd and 10 a lot in the Mike Zimmer era. And Mike Zimmer just chose to run the ball anyway, because, run the ball or else I'll murder you. Basically what's going on. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, and everybody's like, wow, how is it? Tyler Conklin's over in New York right now going like, there's plenty of room here for Dalvin. I don't know. We got Breece Hall. We got Zonovan Knight, Dalvin Cook. We got Aaron Rodgers, which, by the way, ESPN seems to think now the Jets are like the underdog of the NFL and need to win a championship ASAP, which no, I don't care about the Jets. I don't care about Aaron Rodgers. Like, if you Hard Knocks, they chose the Jets right now. Like what they should do is like, if they can do like the special effects thing and like, while Aaron Rodgers is talking, like zoom in on his like pupil and then like just put like more than a feeling in the background where it's like, and then it's like all these colors inside his brain. Like that's basically what's going on over there right now. So I don't know. Like maybe he's somewhere trying to look for the Batman right now. I don't know. But Mina Kimes, she gets it here. Yep. And this is what she said on her podcast earlier this week. One of the things that Kevin O'Connell has mentioned is kind of wanting the offense to be a bit more balanced. This is a team that was extremely pass heavy last year. The 6th pass heaviest team on first down in the NFL, 4th heaviest on second down. But to me, when he talks about balance, that doesn't mean we're going to run the ball on early downs. It means we're going to run the ball when it's favorable to run the ball, and we're going to do so efficiently. The Vikings faced a ton of too high coverage last year, a very high rate of light boxes, but they did run into them a lot. And when they did, they weren't particularly efficient in doing so. I think this is part of the reason they were willing to make the change and move on from Dalvin Cook this offseason. And they added Josh Oliver. Maybe we're going to see more. This is a very tight end heavy team. Maybe we're going to see more tight end. Or I think she said, again, Otter kind of.
I think she was talking about like 2 tight end sets.
Yeah, 2 tight end sets. More outside zone, that sort of thing. Otter is great. Sometimes it just kind of, you got to proofread it a little bit. But why is Mina Kimes the only person that can see this outside of Minnesota, of course?
Because she paid attention. She probably took she didn't even have to take that long to look up the acquisitions the Vikings made this offseason, retaining CJ Ham, signing Josh Oliver. They're probably going to extend TJ Hawkinson, and listening to Kevin O'Connell at the combine, listening to him during some of the OTA press conferences about how he has emphasized efficiency the entire offseason, especially when it comes to the running game, and he is very well aware that the Vikings were not efficient when it came to running the ball last year. And I was just thinking, this kind of reminds me when the Rams moved on from Todd Gurley, and they were just there were some people who were like, I can't believe the Rams moved on from Todd Gurley. How could they do that? And then what happened the next year? They won the Super Bowl with Sony Michel as their leading rusher. Okay? Because they were more efficient. Teams weren't able to just gang up and figure out what they were going to do when they were running the ball. Defenses really just had a harder time figuring out what the Rams offense was going to do because they weren't used to some of the players on the field, or they mix things up more. They're able to do that. I think that's what the Vikings want to do. They want to, Alexander's being tabbed as the RB1 right now, but I'm going to think that it might be like a share, maybe 60-40 with Ty Chandler, or 70-20-10 with Ty Chandler and Kene Nwangwu or Dwayne McBride. So I think it's going to be more of a mixture of everything. And it doesn't take long to if I'm looking stuff up about another team, I want to know that I'm not going to sound like an idiot when I'm talking, but I do understand the guys that cover it nationally. They have a lot to cover, but it does not take. If you're going, they knew they were talking about Dalvin Cook on Pat McAfee. You're talking about that, and Pat McAfee doesn't even have to prepare. He has people that can do it for him.
Yeah,
but he's also someone, former player. He does not like to bash current or former NFL players. It's just that fraternity that he's always going to be a part of. He's never really going to do that unless you are a giant asshole. He'll rip Antonio Brown, but everybody does that. So yeah, I'm not surprised with his comments. Who else? Pelissero, not surprised about those. And even Rich Eisen, I think I don't know if we talked about his comments, but he was kind of saying the same thing. How can you move on from Dalvin Cook after he rushed for over 1,000 yards in the last 4 seasons? How can you do that? And it's look at his cap number, dude, and then look at how much, how efficient he is. And then you'll be like, oh yeah, okay.
It's because everybody plays fantasy football. Yeah. If you had a whole bunch of people probably had Dalvin Cook on their fantasy teams last year, and they were like, hey, this is awesome. I traded Dalvin Cook because I saw the efficiency going around, and it looked like a bad trade because he put up 1,100 yards and still scored all of those touchdowns. He had a really good season statistically. But again, there's a difference between being the, ooh, that boy nice watcher and looking into things like Mina Kimes did, where it's okay, why did they do this? I mean, other guys are asking, why did they do this? Mina's sitting there going why did they do this? Yeah. And looks back at Kevin O'Connell's quotes, looks back at efficiency and all that stuff. And again, I've been critical on the Vikings being Alexander Madison is him. He is RB1, blah, blah, blah. But I also understand why they are moving on from Dalvin Cook. And I think it's a good idea to not have a guy that's worth $14 million. And by the way, other people across the league are doing the same thing right now. Yeah. The Giants aren't paying Saquon Barkley. I think they're going to eventually get a deal done, but they're reluctant to do so. The Raiders are in the same boat. Like, you're going to see Jonathan Taylor struggle to get a contract, which is just insane. But I mean, this is the direction everything is going. And I don't know. It's bizarre that so many people just watched Red Zone or whatever, and we're just like, Dalvin Cook. Yeah.
To be fair, a lot of the people
won my fantasy league, man.
A lot of people saying this stuff are from the older era of the NFL, which to say that is like what, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
It's not that long ago. So the people that are like, oh, how can you get rid of this running back? Like 1,000 yards. It's not the same. Rushing for 1,000 yards is not the same as it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. It doesn't help you maybe as much as it might have in the past because your teams are just throwing the ball so much that like they don't even need you to get 1,000. If you get 700, 800 yards from one guy, that's fine. Like you don't need to have a bell cow running back in your backfield anymore, which is probably why Adrian Peterson is going to struggle to find a job next year when he says, I'm hoping I get signed, but if not, I'll retire. And it's like, well, so I guess you're retiring because no one is going to sign you.
Let's move on from Dalvin Cook. I will say this. This is the last thing I'm going to say on Dalvin Cook. I don't think he's washed. Yeah, for today. We'll probably get back to it. I don't know. It is June. Next episode it'll be July.
Yeah.
Which early July. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, 4th of July, football senses just kind of go down unless somebody like blows their hand off with some fireworks or something.
Yeah.
Fireworks safety, kids.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see this? This is another thing. I guess this is a Viking podcast. I can bring this up. Did you see that Minneapolis is not doing fireworks?
I did see that.
They are doing a laser show.
That's it's interesting. Fireworks are expensive. I will give them that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not like the city has this every week. Like most cities do. They do 4th of July. That's about the only fireworks.
And then maybe like a town festival.
Yeah, or maybe like Memorial Day or
overzealous baseball team. Or in the city of San Diego, they just say, "Let's just rip this thing open, man. Let's light them all off at once."
For sure. Yes, I remember that video. Yes.
Like a Cody Rhodes promo.
Or if the Padres win ever. Then they set off fireworks, but that doesn't happen recently. So, yeah, I did see that, and I'm sure a lot of people had something to say. I'm sure all the comments were very nice in the replies.
They are all very reasonable. Like, you really should reconsider this.
Yes. Are you
America.
Sure? Are you sure?
Yeah. Laser shows weren't in the Team America fight song.
I'll get myself in trouble. The woke lasers are taking over.
McDonald's, bleep, yeah. Laser shows, bleep, yeah. Bleep, yeah. I guess we've already dropped like 6 F-bombs on this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm trying to rein it in. My mom's like, you guys swear a lot. And I'm like, yeah.
It's a podcast.
It's welcome to podcasting.
Yeah.
She's like, I listen to it at work and people give me weird looks. Speaking of weird looks, here's one for you. Apparently, there's going to be a tug of war over Kirk Cousins next offseason if the Vikings don't sign them. We didn't talk about this on Monday when it came out, but it's June. We need stuff to talk about. So we're going to bring it up here. Sometimes you have a discussion about Taylor Swift. Other times you have a discussion about Kirk Cousins. Mike Florio was on the Rich Eisen show, who was cranking out the news, I guess. But he said, let's play it out to March next year. I think you're going to see, unless the Vikings re-sign him, and by then they can't use the franchise tag on the way his contract is structured, you're going to see a potential tug of war between Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay for Kirk Cousins next March. Write that down, or mark that down, he said. This falls into the category of reckless speculation.
Oh, yeah.
But if Kirk isn't on the Vikings, where do you think he ends up?
49ers are at the top of the list for sure. They always are, always will be. But
The
other than that,
49ers are like a bad Taylor Swift. Like the whole Kirk Cousins, like, Kirky boy, take me. I need to get to the Super Bowl. I used Purdy, but he blew his elbow. That's pretty good for off the cuff.
Yeah, there
I'm
you
not gonna
go.
lie.
Other than that, it would just be a team that needs either a bridge quarterback or just wants someone who to fill in, and they feel like they've got enough pieces already. Maybe Kirk Cousins can come in and, you think late career Brad Johnson with the Bucks, something like that, where like he comes in and leads them to a Super Bowl. Can Kirk Cousins do that? Maybe. But the Rams were interesting that Florio threw that out. Like there has never been anything about the Rams having any interest in Kirk Cousins. And Sean McVay coached Kirk Cousins. He was his offensive coordinator for a few years. But also they have Matthew Stafford, and unless he retires, I guess they could look into Kirk Cousins. But this is just Florio. It's June. He's speculating. He's a Vikings fan. He has been just like clamoring for the Vikings to move on from Kirk Cousins every offseason since 2018. And this is just
since before he got here.
Yeah.
He signs his name on the contract. Get him out of here. This guy sucks.
He won at Case Keenum. He did.
And that would have been, I think, you know what? In hindsight, people are going to roast me for this. That might have been the right move, because you know what you do if you keep Case or Teddy Bridgewater? You draft Lamar Jackson in the first round.
Well, and then you're
and of course, Lamar, oh my God, Lamar.
And you're able to
come on,
keep you're able to spend and keep more defensive pieces, which is the philosophy that Mike Zimmer wanted to do. I was reading a Reddit thread yesterday. I was like, why did Mike Zimmer hate Kirk Cousins so much? And some guy replied, which is how we've talked about it. Mike Zimmer never hated Kirk Cousins. Maybe at the end there. But he hated the idea of signing someone like Kirk Cousins that takes up a bunch of cap space, that prevents him from building the type of team that he wants, where he wants to run the ball, be efficient on offense, and then have an elite defense and use a lot of your assets on defense to have your defense be one of the best. So, this is just Florio being Florio, because there's a couple teams that he's been continuing a certain narrative on, like the Cardinals. He's going hard on the Jonathan Gannon thing about the tampering, and Cardinals fans are like, he's more like are fed up with Florio because he just won't let it go. They're like, dude, nothing's gonna happen. Just give it up. And then there's a couple.
He's
other
like,
teams.
It's June.
Yeah, there's a couple other teams. Like I think the Bills. Anytime Stephon Diggs stuff happens, I mean, we do that too. But like, he just goes in extra hard on like a couple of things and whatever. He's got sources. I will give him that. So he is informed, but he has a website that publishes probably 20 to 30 articles a day. So they have to, and this is June, July now. They got to come up with anything to talk about. And he has a daily podcast, I think, too. So like daily NFL podcast in July. Yeah, you need stuff to talk. You can't just rip on Chris Sims the whole time.
And podcasts jobs are the hardest in the world, according to Travis Kelce. Actually, he said more like, yo, let me tell you something, dog. Bro, this podcast job, it's so hard. Like, people don't know what they're doing or why they do this or whatever. And like, aren't they doing like the match too? Like
him and Mahomes, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was his brother Jason, but no, it's him and Mahomes, right? Like, which
I like. Jason Kelce's entertaining.
He is.
Saw him the other day chugging beer.
Yeah. I don't know. Travis Kelce I did see the video of George Kittle like doing beer Olympics. And that was hot. Like, I know Travis has said he wants to do WWE in the future. George Kittle has already done WWE.
George Kittle he's going to be in WWE after
George Kittle's going to be a wrestler after the NFL. Like, he's literally going to go to like, all right, I just beat the hell out of my body for 10 years. What should I do? I'm going to be a pro wrestler. Like, I could see him like training and becoming like this.
Yeah. He'll
like mid-cut, like what Gronk tried to do. Gronk tried to do
Yeah.
the whole wrestling thing, and he wasn't cut out for it. Like George Kittle's like, you want me to jump off that platform? I'll do that shit. That looks like a blast.
And Gronk was also in like the COVID pandemic.
Yeah,
too,
that didn't help him at all either.
That was weird. But yeah, I could see George Kittle kind of sound like a Logan Paul deal where he has a few appearances a year and has some big because like he doesn't need to be in a consistent storyline. He's a draw.
Yeah.
He's gonna be a draw. He just has to prove he can wrestle one time. That's all Logan Paul had to do. You have to prove you can wrestle one time, and then you're good. You're set. And I think he can do that. He's very athletic, and he loves wrestling. So he's kind of like the Miz. And like before the Miz came aboard, he had the Miz persona on like the challenge on MTV and everything, and then he got to WWE and it was like, oh yeah, you already know how to do this. So.
And he's got a personality too. Like
yeah,
Kittle,
if you're good on the mic already,
yeah,
you're fine. You don't even have to be that good in the ring.
I feel like Kelsey, we're going down a rabbit hole, but again, it's June.
Money in the Bank,
June.
Saturday.
Hey, yeah, I was going to bring that up later. Hold that thought.
Okay.
But, like Kelsey has this character, but it seems like super fake. Like Cy Amundsen, a good friend of mine, actually brought this up on his podcast because he goes, if Sesame Street needed a white rapper Muppet, all they would have to do is cover Travis Kelce in fur.
Oh no.
And it's dead on. Like,
wasn't he on like a dating show or something too?
Yeah, he was like it was called Catching Kelsey, I believe.
Oh god.
And then Andy Reid put a play in the playbook called Catching Kelsey.
Yeah, he better rip him. I heard he's
like, oh man.
I've heard Kelsey's a decent dude though. Like I've never heard any bad things about him in terms of like being an asshole or anything. So he's got that going for him.
Yeah. I don't even remember what. So the Kirk thing. The Kirk thing we were talking about, our own team. We went to laser shows. We went to tight ends, turning into WWE wrestlers.
June 29.
It is June. Anything goes. Anything goes in June. But it's funny to me with Kirk because it feels a lot like the Dalvin Cook thing nationally. Like most of the national media would probably like throw on the Jets or the Giants or the Cowboys. But like, maybe they got red zone in the corner and be like, oh man, Kirk's cooking out there. Look, he's leading another comeback. Like, holy, and then they go and they look at his stats and they're like, oh man, look at this. This guy is amazing. And then they're like, why Kirk Cousins should be in the Hall of Fame. And we've said it before. I think Kirk's a good quarterback. He's stabilized the position for a franchise that has had a revolving door at quarterback. That being said, and because he's a quarterback with a pulse, he's going to get paid. Like, as long as he doesn't go Russell Wilson and fall off the cliff this year, somebody's going to give him a lot of money.
Has he been, another tangent, has Kirk Cousins had a successful NFL career?
I would say so. Based off of context, he's gotten a lot of money.
Pick.
Like, in terms of team success, no. But if we put Kirk in a vacuum, yes.
Yeah,
fourth round pick.
Behind RG3.
Makes, wins a starting job, makes a ton of money in the process. Yeah. And he's always in the mix. Like, as much as people like shit on Kirk for like, oh, he's never been, he gets the team there. He puts the team in a position to get to the playoffs.
Right. How many quarterbacks have won the Super Bowl in like the last few years? Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
That's less than 10% of the league.
And like before then, it was like Eli Manning and Ben Roethlisberger were on that list. Like there's only like 4.
So yeah. So like, I think what Kirk does is probably like his vision of success is probably similar to a lot of players in the NFL. Like they want to make as much money as possible, which they should, because it's not a normal job. Like I know a lot of people are like, well, they compare it sometimes and be like, well, if I did this in my job, I'd be fired. Well, it's not a normal job. They get paid millions of dollars to play a game. So I think I would say he's been a success for sure.
And I think people also kind of crap on him too, because what has he done in the big moments? Like, yes, there was that New Orleans game where he threw the palm to Thielen and then Kyle Rudolph pushed off for a touchdown. I'm going to keep reminding people of that. Dalvin
Cook was good in that game.
He was very good in that game. He was so good. Mike Zimmer wanted to run him repeatedly so he didn't have to have Kirk Cousins throw the football. But people don't remember that either. Maybe that should be a rewatchables for us where we just go. I mean, we're gonna fire that back up here in the next month because it's July, like before training camp. So we'll have a couple of games that we watch and talk about that. But yeah, I mean, you have last year 4th and 8. He checks down. You know, a lot of the offensive line, this, like other people are saying, yeah, he should have thrown the ball downfield. I don't know, man. Like my favorite thing about this is I'm just envisioning like an actual tug of war with Kirk Cousins, like Sean McVay and his frosted tips on grabbing one arm, and like Kyle Shanahan and like it is flat brimmed hat
Cabo,
in the other,
right?
just like
they're doing it in Cabo.
Are they both in Cabo?
No, they're doing the tug of war in Cabo, right?
On the
beach.
So it's on the beach. One guy's got an arm, and like Kirk's just in the middle, like gritting his teeth, like, I don't know, guys, this is kind of crazy. Like
Sean McVay's got Andrew Whitworth behind him, and Shanahan's got what's his
George
face?
Kittle,
or who's his tackle?
Trent Williams.
Yeah.
I would not want to face Trent Williams in tug of war.
No.
He would like. It would be like Scorpion Mortal Kombat,
yes.
You know, get over here, and then. I don't know.
It's always I see interviews with him and he's like he seems like a nice guy, and then you see like him like just slap Richard Sherman in the face when he's on the field. You're like, oh, okay, don't mess with him.
Speaking of alter egos on the field, so yeah, that's all I got on Kirk Cousins. After a couple of tangents. Our last topic, NFL topic anyway. NFL doles out more gambling suspensions. Several players have been suspended. You said the names were.
Yep. I don't know if I got the names, but the Colts have already cut 2 players. Isaiah Rodgers, we already knew about him.
Yeah.
And defensive end Schad, who I believe both of them are suspended indefinitely. And there's somebody from the Titans, like a right tackle, Nicolas Petit-Frere. I'm assuming that's
Special
French,
probably.
No, he was like
sounds like he should have been selected in the top 10 in the NHL draft
or the CFL.
MMA fighter.
I think he was a right tackle for the Titans, and he got suspended 6 games for betting in a team facility. Not even he didn't bet on the NFL, but bet in the team facility, which is pretty vague. I think you're gonna go over that, and I got something to say about that.
So. Yeah. So here's the NFL policy. Because it finally became public. Everybody's like, okay, well, what are the rules here?
I love the first rule.
Yeah. So the first rule is don't bet on the NFL.
Oh, no way.
You know, and I mean, that's where it's like the whole thing, like Isaiah Rodgers bet on Colts games and he's like, and you know, everybody's like, oh man, they're too hard. No. That is literally the dumbest thing you can do. Like betting on your own team. Like, you deserve to be cut.
Even if you're a kicker. Well, a kicker actually that would be huge. Because he's like, oh, we can tie the game. Or I can miss and get this money line.
Gary Anderson had the under.
He did.
Oh, man. So don't bet on the NFL. Don't gamble at your team facility while traveling for a road game or staying at a home team. All right. I typed this wrong. Don't gamble at your team facility while traveling for a road game or staying at a team hotel. Don't have someone bet for you. Don't share team inside information. Don't enter a sports book during the NFL playing season, and don't play daily fantasy football. Some of the things betting on the NFL, I agree with. Some of the things I think are a little extreme. Like you can't bet on an NBA game while you're chilling, you know, like Jameson Williams and somebody else sitting there like, hey, I really like the Pistons.
They're bored in their hotel.
-4. Like you want to do like the group, you know, or you want to do a parlay or, you know, see if we win some money or whatever. Like you're just bored. Like that doesn't hurt anyone. But like, you know, sharing inside information. Okay. Yep. Get out of here. You know, don't enter a sports book. Totally fair.
Yeah,
except like some of the other things is
some stadiums now have sports books in them, so you're like
they're gonna sponsor these suspensions, like Isaiah Rodgers with a gambling suspension presented by DraftKings. the official partner of the NFL.
My question was about the team facility. So, like, if you're in the team hotel and you want to make a bet, all you have to do is like go to the restaurant across the street, and then you can make the bet, and then you won't get in trouble.
On like just outside of the parking lot.
What is the difference?
We're live here outside of TCO Performance Center in Eagan, and Brian O'Neill is sitting on a barricade just with his phone. Hey man, I'm just making a bet quick. I'm gonna go right back in. I really like twin strikeouts plus 10 tonight.
And the daily fantasy stuff is weird too, because it's like
if you're on a bye, I mean,
a lot of that stuff you don't have control over. Like
right.
You have to pick multiple players from multiple teams. You're not going to have control over that. Like, I understand, like, if you want to bet on, you pick yourself because you think
you're going to lose to some guy in his parents' basement who has like a computer program that's just like,
oh yeah, their daily fantasy players are ridiculous.
I hate daily fantasy. Like it is. I used to play it all the time, but now it's just
you have to pay. You have to like set aside time to be good at that, which some people do, and they're good at it. I just think the NFL needs to like get out of this gray area. I think it needs to be either just don't bet. You're in the NFL, don't bet at all. Nothing. Don't do it at all. If you bet, you're suspended for a year. That's it. Just do that. You don't have to be. But they have partners with DraftKings, partners with FanDuel. Like they've put themselves back themselves into this corner.
As they're like, so if they do that, they're going to be like, excuse me?
Where it's like, oh, you guys, you want our money for our sponsorships, but you're going to bash our product because, you think it's a poor reflection on your league. So they've done it to themselves. And now, there hasn't been someone like imagine if like Josh Allen gets suspended, people lose their minds. And who knows? Maybe somebody will do that. Well, Calvin Ridley he was a pretty big name.
Yeah, and he's coming back for the Jaguars now.
Yeah, and he did that when he was like he had stepped away from the team.
Yeah, he had a mental break, and then I think he did bet on he did like an 18 parlay that included the Falcons, but he wasn't in the game.
He wasn't in the game. He wasn't even in the locker room. He wasn't in the team facility. He had no impact. Like
right.
It's a very gray area. So they got to figure something else out because their policy that they have now, clearly, one, I've read or heard that like teams didn't really go over the betting policy with their players, which is insane to me. It's pretty serious.
I mean, didn't Zimmer bring in like Dr. Fauci for COVID?
Right.
I don't think it was Fauci. It was some U of M guy.
And you know what? I understand teams have had bounties before. So they've had
players make side bets.
Yes, they can do that. Like, but for things that they can keep track of, which the NFL clearly is, they're clearly keeping track of. And I believe like these companies and these apps, it's their job to report. Like if they notice an NFL player is betting or whatever, they have to. So you're stupid if you're breaking the rules or whatever, because you're just like basically giving yourself up because you're going to get caught. There's no way you're not going to get caught. Unless you have someone do it for you who isn't in the NFL. Like that's literally the only way around it. But like it's just such a gray area, and I don't know. It sort of reminded me of like some of the old domestic violence policies the NFL used to have, or some of the old drug policies they used to have, where it's like, well, is there video? No. Okay. So you only get like this many games, but then you see the video and you're like, oh, well, you need a lot more games. And it's like, no. Like it should have been bad the first time. So like, this isn't the first time the NFL's, backed themselves in a corner. Usually they figure out a way to get around it. But I think these suspensions, and I think the purpose of these suspensions, especially of these players that, aren't as notable as a way to be like, guys. Don't bet on games because we will suspend you. We're not messing around here. So just don't do that.
It's a very weird situation. Hopefully it's one that just doesn't affect the Vikings at all. Like you said, like it's probably just
it will
just to go. Somebody will. Like we'll see.
Maybe Justin Jefferson will be the.
Got a little extra cash in his pocket, a little time,
Nah,
and
he
just decides to.
he's a gamer. He's a video gamer.
What if he throws money down on game of Madden?
I'm sure he does, but that's allowed. Yeah, like, but he plays a lot of video games. I don't think he's into like the betting thing. I don't know. It's the whole thing though. Like you can do it if you cross the street at a restaurant, but if you're in your own hotel room just chilling, you're suspended. Makes no sense.
Speaking of video games, well, one, NCAA football was in the news again. That's fun. Apparently, some NLI company didn't get the naming rights or something to NCAA or I don't know. It's all very confusing, but it's apparently not going to slow down the game, which was like my biggest fear, like when it first
They're
broke.
suing him,
So
right?
yeah, they're suing them because apparently so there's one company, I don't know the name off the top of my head. They have this group of schools, and apparently there's another NL or NIL. NLI is National Letter of Intent. So NIL is name, image, likeness.
Couldn't they have made that a little different?
They could have done a lot of things with NIL, to be honest,
Yeah.
because it's kind of spiraling out of control, and like the NCAA does with a lot of things.
No one never saw that coming.
Yeah. It's kind of like players betting on the NFL, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, one group has this group of schools, another group has another group of schools, and they want their players to get more money. And EA is just like, well, we just won't put you in the game because, quite frankly, all they need is the teams, and then the dark overlords of the internet can be like, all right, we got this. Here we go. Add the names. You can download it online.
You really only need what? Like 6 or 8 conferences. Do you really need like? Do we really need Austin, PA, or?
Yes, because that's the best part of the game. I want to rebuild Austin, PA, or UTEP, or
Hawaii.
The last dyno I did. Oh, Hawaii is a great school to do for NCAA. The last school I did was James Madison to start off because they were a new FBS program. And I did that. I went to Kentucky, and then I revived the Gophers. So I mean, that's part of the fun is like starting, like, it's no fun to like just be like, I'm going to beat Georgia and win the national title every year. Like maybe that is kind of fun, but it's also kind of like, well,
it's like playing, like when you used to play Madden, you put on rookie mode and you're like, oh, I scored 100 points. Great. Like,
well, and then in NCAA, you just go, I'm going to take this job at Idaho and like FCS schools. Now that's what I hope are in the game.
I'm curious to see how they implement the NIL stuff like into the game. Like, are you going to be able to like sign someone to a
Madden $2 million NFL free agency?
Yeah, you're going to sign a recruit to a $2 million contract or sponsorship or whatever it's called.
Back in the day, they used to have academic suspensions. So like you'd be, so you would be Minnesota, you'd be going into a game in Wisconsin and be like, your tight end cheated on a test or whatever. And you have to decide, do you want to suspend him for like a quarter or like whatever? And the NCAA stepped in there like, yeah, we can't do this shit.
I would have gone like full Art Briles and been like, nope, he's playing. He's starting every game.
And then your program credibility would go down.
We're winning.
Oh, it's so awesome. Another video game news, Fight Forever came out.
Yeah.
It looks like a PS3 game.
Yeah. But you can wrestle with Orange Cassidy's hands in his pocket.
You can also wrestle with Orange Cassidy on a better video game in 2K, whatever. I mean,
if you download the person or whatever.
Yeah. You have to create him, but
yeah.
I mean,
well, people have already done that for like everything, and you just download the whatever, the packages or whatever.
Right. I like honestly kind of relating it to the college football game because like I think a lot of people were upset that it was delayed a year, but sometimes when they delay these games, they have a good reason for it.
Yep.
Fight Forever is kind of one of those things where it's like, why isn't it coming out? Well, it's glitchy as hell.
And I feel like they've added a lot more notable names to AEW in the last year than they been when they were probably going to release the game. Like CM Punk's in there, Daniel Bryan's in there, Adam Cole's in there, a bunch of other people, and what Soraya. Not that, and everyone's like thrilled to play with her or whatever. Everyone's like, I gotta do it. But yeah, it does
play with Tony Storm.
It does remind me of like a SmackDown. Here Comes the Pain. PS2,
and that's why I like the idea. Yeah, if it looked a little better and it didn't, have collision detection issues, we'd have a game.
Whatever, it's their first game.
I did see an old video of SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, and like I forgot like how crazy it was. Like you're jumping off of like buildings to like clothesline people. Kevin Nash is like power bombing somebody off the SmackDown fist.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I saw a clip where Brock Lesnar was doing the F5, and then in the middle of F5, Goldberg speared the guy. So it was like,
what? You throw him into a car and it just explodes.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I used to play. Yeah, those are I would play those games, and I would play Madden growing up and FIFA growing up.
Yes, I loved
those stupid storylines in the backstage. You had to pick what you wanted to say.
Little Mountain Dew, little Doritos, maybe some stuffed crust pizza. You're good to go. Very quickly to close things out. Money in the Bank. Who's winning the ladder matches?
LA Knight.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Because
you got a women's one or no?
We've talked. Yeah. Well, we've talked about Logan Paul. Maybe winning it, but I've heard a lot of things where like he doesn't need it. Like he just challenged Roman Reigns a couple months ago for a title. He doesn't need the briefcase. He doesn't need that. Where it's typically used to like pump up someone. The women, I've heard a lot of Zelina Vega talk. Since she had that good outing in Puerto Rico, and she's good on the mic. But she's tiny. Like, is that believable that she can? But I guess if you have Money in the Bank, it doesn't matter if you're like bigger or smaller than someone, because you just come in when someone's like just beat up. Is Raquel in it? No, she got knocked out. She's in the tag team.
She lost in a qualifier.
I would like to see like Io Sky win it, and then have Bailey like be pissed at her like the whole time, and then have that whole thing go down.
So I think for the women's, I think Becky Lynch will win.
Yeah.
And I don't really like it, but I think it's the most. What I want with a women's one is somebody to hold it a while, because it's been like formulaic. Like somebody wins it and they cash it within like 2 weeks. Yeah, most of the time it's later that night, but like hold on to it for like 6 months. And like I would like it if both Money in the Bank contracts were just.
They even have. Is Asuka and Charlotte? Are they wrestling on Saturday?
They're wrestling on Friday. They're fighting for the title on SmackDown.
Well, I guess that's
SmackDown is pretty loaded this week.
That's in the UK too. It's basically like another PLE.
Yes. So,
and then you got the Usos.
The Bloodline, the Civil War.
They're gonna win. And Solo's gonna mess it up somehow, and then that's gonna start. I feel like that riff is gonna start. Maybe they'll try and create something between the Usos too. I don't know. But I'd be very surprised.
I mean, it's gonna be Jay and Roman at SummerSlam, right?
I don't know.
Unless they go Fatal 4-Way, which is.
Yeah.
I mean, if Solo kind of gets ticked at Roman, but I think they need to kind of bottle that up a little bit.
But yeah, are they gonna make it go all the way to WrestleMania? Because it's still ways away. Somebody's gonna have to go away for a while. Someone's gonna have to get like written off and then come back in like January, and then.
So yeah, women's ladder match. And I'll kind of wrap this up here. But I mean, women's, I think Becky's going to win. I would like to see Io win. I think that's who I want to see win, but we'll see what happens. And then I also think that in the men's, like you said, I think it's a case of who needs the briefcase. Like Logan Paul would be a good story. Like if he cashed in on Rollins and won it, I think people would lose their minds. But at the same time, you have a story with the champion already in place. It'd be a good storyline, but you don't need it to reinvoke that storyline. Damian Priest.
Yeah, that's one I've heard too.
That's another good one, but I don't think he needs the briefcase to eventually break away from the Judgment Day. He's 42. I did not realize that.
Yeah. Does Finn Balor win and then Priest cashes it in right after he wins?
That's another potential thing. I think it should be LA Knight.
Yeah.
I think he's got the most momentum. I think he's a guy that can hold the briefcase for a couple of months while things kind of cook. And
is it crazy that Vince McMahon made him like a manager?
He's going to make Adam Cole a manager.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing, dude? This guy, like, now that he's become what he's become, it's like, what were you doing?
Well, and LA Knight said too, he's like, at one point, I'm pretty sure I was fired.
Yeah.
But something happened.
And then I see McMahon's like trying to get more involved, and everyone's like, no, go away.
And then that's enough. Like he had that good beginning to Raw, and then he did like a heat check episode of SmackDown, and it was
go brush your mustache. Get out of here. Just get out of here.
No. But that is all the time we have for the Viking Age podcast with your occasional wrestling update. My name is Chris Schad. I do the show with I can't even think of names right now. Adam Patrick every Monday and Thursday night. If you miss us, we're available in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. And of course, check us out on the Viking Age YouTube channel. This is what happens when I read the intro for the outro. But however you consume us, rate, comment, like, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We will not have an episode on Monday because it is the 4th of July weekend. So enjoy your long weekend. We will talk to you next time on the Viking Age podcast.